There are times when the body feels as though it is holding a charge that has nowhere to go. Even in a quiet room, something inside remains alert, as if listening for a sound that has not yet arrived. Muscles stay slightly braced. Breathing feels shallow or irregular, and even stillness can seem strangely uncomfortable. From the outside, nothing dramatic may be happening. Yet inwardly, there is movement, a constant scanning, a readiness that does not fully switch off. Sitting down does not necessarily bring rest. Lying down does not always bring ease. The system seems to remain on standby, waiting for a signal it cannot quite identify. Many people recognize this state as restlessness, though the word can often feel too small for this experience. It is not simply physical energy, and not exactly fear, more like an unsettled vibration running beneath ordinary thoughts. Have you ever noticed how difficult it can be to focus on one thing when that underlying tension is present? Attention moves quickly, as though searching for an exit. Small noises feel sharper, interruptions more jarring, and silence somehow loud. Even pleasant activities may fail to absorb the mind for long, because something deeper continues to hum in the background. In certain traditions, there is an observation that the human system evolved to detect change and potential danger, long before it learned how to relax deliberately. Alertness once kept communities safe. It mobilized energy for action, sharpened our perception, and reduced the risk of being caught unaware. In modern environments, the same capacity can remain active, long after its usefulness has passed. When this heightened state lingers, the body can begin to feel like a place that is difficult to inhabit. Movement may help briefly, but the sense of unease returns when the activity stops. Rest becomes something that has to be attempted rather than something that arrives naturally. Time can behave differently here. Minutes stretch, yet the day seems to pass without a sense of completion. There may be a persistent feeling that something important has been forgotten, even when nothing specific comes to mind. Thoughts circle back on themselves without ever forming clear narratives, as though just maintaining some form of motion. Have you ever found that the more you try to force calm, the more elusive it becomes? Effort can sometimes add another layer of tension, as though the system interprets urgency itself as a signal to stay alert. Some traditions speak of this state as wind-like, not in a mystical sense, but as a way of describing movement without direction. Wind stirs leaves, shifts branches, and creates sound. Yet it doesn't decide where to go in the same way that a person might choose a destination. It moves according to conditions, strengthening or softening as those conditions change. Human inner weather can behave similarly. Periods of agitation arise, gather intensity, and eventually disperse, often without a clear beginning or end. While present, they can feel permanent. However, memory suggests otherwise. Have you ever noticed how a state that once seemed unbearable later becomes difficult to recall in detail? Small sensory anchors sometimes remain available, even when the mind is unsettled. The feeling of fabric against the skin, the steady contact of feet with the floor, the faint background sounds that continue regardless of mood. These are not solutions in themselves, more like quiet reference points reminding the body that it is here, supported by something solid. Outside, the world usually continues at a slower pace than the one felt inside. Trees move gradually in the wind. Light shifts almost imperceptibly across walls. Distant sounds rise and fall without urgency. Observing these slower rhythms can sometimes create a gentle contrast, like stepping from a rushing current into a pool where the water moves more calmly. Movement can also take on a different quality when it is not driven by the need to escape the feeling. A slow walk, for instance, may reveal details that go unnoticed when walking quickly. The texture of pavement, the pattern of shadows, the way air changes temperature from one place to another, not as a task to complete, but as a way of inhabiting space more fully. Music, too, can provide a kind of container, especially when it has a steady or spacious character. Sound fills the environment in a predictable way, offering the nervous system something continuous to follow instead of scanning endlessly for new input. None of these experiences eliminate restlessness outright, yet they can alter its relationship to the present moment. Instead of being the only thing in awareness, the agitation becomes one element among many, a current flowing through a larger field, rather than the entire landscape. Buddhist teachings often describe suffering as intensifying when resistance tightens around experience. When the mind fights what is happening, the struggle itself adds weight. When attention widens, even slightly, there may be room for other sensations to coexist alongside the tension. If restlessness is present, it can be acknowledged simply as movement in the system, not as a personal failing or a sign that something irreversible has occurred. Movement eventually changes because conditions change. The body tires, the environment shifts, attention wanders, energy redistributes. There can be a quiet reassurance in remembering that no organism sustains peak alertness indefinitely. Cycles of activation are always followed by some form of settling, even if the transition is gradual and uneven. For now, it may be enough to let the body be as it is, charged or unsettled, while noticing that the ground continues to hold you, the air continues to surround you, and time continues to pass without requiring anything in particular from you. The sense of urgency belongs to the internal weather, not necessarily to the moment itself. Sometimes, simply recognizing that distinction softens the edges a little. The energy remains, yet it no longer defines the entire experience. There is the restlessness, and there is also the room, the chair, the sounds, the breath moving in and out, the wider world carrying on in its own way. In time, intensity tends to fluctuate. Waves rise and fall even when the ocean beneath them remains vast and steady. You are not separate from that larger steadiness, though it may be difficult to feel while the surface is active. For now, this moment can be allowed to unfold at its own pace, without forcing stillness or pursuing distraction. Just being here, alert, restless, aware, within a space that is already holding you. Something may settle on its own, or the energy may simply shift into a different form. Either way, the movement continues, and you continue with it. Just enough noticing, just enough space, just enough to rest where you are. Thank you for listening. If this was in any way helpful to you, please return whenever you need. And if you'd like to support this space, liking or subscribing helps these videos reach others who might be struggling too. Thank you for being here, and take care of yourself.